This lesson concentrates on our fundamental value proposition for EMDA and ZAP, and that is how we build data models automatically. What we'll see in this lesson is how we build a model from scratch, and then what ZAP has done under the hood, behind the scenes, seeing exactly what that automation has built. Creating a model is all about point and click and drag and drop. What you'll see today is that I'm going to show you how to build a model using ZAP's automation data management solution. Let's have a look. So what I'm going to do is click onto new and then onto model. What you see here is the process bar. These are all the steps that you've got to take to build your automated data model. We selected this data section. The data section allows me to connect to any type of file, where irrespective of type, location, size. And then what ZAP will do once we've connected to it is automatically reverse engineer a warehouse in Cube, i.e. the data model. Once that's completed, then you have a starting point to start modifying and further enhancing the model that you've created. So what we're going to do instead, though, is click solution. When I click the solution section, ZAP or EMDA is basically telling me as the user that I know the systems below here very well. So if you select me, I'm not only going to build an automatic warehouse in Cube with pre-built calculations that don't come in standard within that system. I'll also give you 300 plus on average pre-built dashboards, reports, and other different types of analytics. What's also important there is that you're also getting role-based dashboards and reports. So things like sales reports and dashboards, finance, AP, AR. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to select Sage X3, which is now called Enterprise Management. I'm going to choose the one that sits on SQL, not Oracle for now. And this is the most technical it gets. I have a data gateway that enables me to connect to a different server that's not in my internal network, or I can just put in my SQL instance, then put in my credentials, my login credentials, and then select the source database of Enterprise Management here, Sage X3. This part is not part within the scope of this creating a data model, but we'll come back to that at a later time. I'm going to test the connection of my model, and all is good. It's recognized it as a Sage X3 data model, database. So I'm going to click on next, and now because the application, i.e. ZAP Data Hub or EMDA, knows X3 inside out, it's saying, well, I know that this database is multi-company. So what companies do you want to bring in? Let's bring in all of them. So I'm going to click on next, and this next part is essentially where ZAP technology, i.e. EMDA technology, will start to kick in to automatically build that data model from scratch. So all I need to do here is call it EDM for Enterprise Data Model, or we'll call it as a UDM for a Unified Data Model. Click onto Browse, decide where I want to save it. So what we'll do here is we'll call it a webinar. And then from there, select that particular folder, click OK, and then I'm going to hit Create Model. Now on the right-hand side is where all the modeling is now being executed. So before we look at that, what's important here is that I've deployed this on my model server. My model server is SQL Server, but I can also deploy it on cloud if I wish, say Azure Services. I can deploy the analytics in the ZAP Data Hub only model. You will not have analytics. It will just be a data management feature. And then below here are all the models that you can also deploy in the modules within my X3 that I can deploy. So let's go and see what's going on behind the scenes. So if I open this up, essentially it's going to import the X3 solution as a reference model. And then all the transformations are going on essentially here. transformations such as table transformations, putting in new calculations, pulling in security profiles, and other different aspects that need to be done to make the original source database into a facts and dimensions data model, not only on the warehouse side, but also that semantic layer, such as a materialized view, and also cubes. In this case, we're just creating one unified cube. So in this process here, my VM has 4 core processors, 32 gig of RAM, and ultimately I have around 75% free space against the original source data. And processing times for that type of speed altogether with what I've highlighted should take around 4 minutes long. Now the automation is completed, let's go and see what else we've got to do to finish the model. So I'm going to click on to next, and because again this is Sage X3, it understands there's a section of financial dimensions. You can add these in also within your data model. If I click on to next, we're going to go into something which is quite important, especially for the people on this particular course that understand how difficult it is just to do basic date reporting when it comes to writing up some code on, say, SSRS. So in this case, what we've got is understanding when the first and the last day of my model will be. All the date features, whether irrespective of what type of system it is, American, US, UK based, whatever that is, you can unify all the formats into one globalized date format. From there, you can break out different calendars. So let's remove 2 of these, and we'll keep to 1 calendar, 1 fiscal. In my first calendar, I can have it also by semester and by current week, and we'll say that week starts on a Monday. And then my other calendar, my fiscal calendar, which is a lot more important, I can put my semester, my week, say that my week starts on a Monday, and then my financial year starts in March with a 4-4-5 calendar. Why is that important? Because you may have instances where all the companies you have multiple calendars. So for instance, you can add another fiscal calendar if you wish. When I hit finish, that is my draft complete. And in essence, you have completed the exercise of building your data model for Sage X3 in this instance. But before we go on, I'm just going to deploy what we've just created onto SQL Server. Now, on another side of this, what you've essentially built as a draft is the logical and conceptual model of your application. And within that, what that looks like is essentially you have not deployed it onto a physical server yet, which is SQL Server in this case. So what we're going to do now is essentially see what has been done under the hood. So from here, what we're going to do is we're going to go and select data sources to see what data sources there are. We've got an Excel sheet, which is essentially a mapping and also a dimensions sheet with aging bucket, probability buckets, etc., etc. And then Sage X3 is the connection to the actual underlying system. So I've selected that. And what I like to show customers is that here we've got all the different types of tables that exist within my X3 source database. We've got all the caption data, the modules that it sits in, the rows, the amount of data that's within each table, and then the relationships that exist between each other. So this is a great start, but the data management component of our solution, we're only touching the surface. So let me close this down. So now you can see that at the data source level, that's what we've brought in. But what we're going to do here is look at what it looks like on the pipeline level. So let's open up pipelines. Now remember all of those different types of cryptic names that you saw previously for the X3 system. They're all found here. And what we've got instead is a transformation, just like we showed you for the automation piece, of every single core table that we've pulled through. This will also be the same for the customization tables that you've got for your system too. And you can see I've got a clear description of what that table name is. and also a description of what that table is about. Just some iconography things going on here. What we've got here is this icon is a dimension that will be ending up on my cube. And then on this, we've got something called a measure. And that will be a measure, something factual about my business or the business that we've just made the model for in the cube 2. So from there, then we've got our relationships. And the relationships are important because now we need to understand how all those different table pipelines interconnect with one another. So from here, I can go and type in company, and you can see all the different type of tables that we've got and how company relates to them. You can change these relationships or add more depending on what your requirement is when implementing EMDA or ZAP BI. When I close this, the first 3 sections are going to be the heavy lifting, the automation piece that Zap Data Hub does in the background. And 60 to 70% of all your projects will be spent around this area when it comes to data management.